Rain hammered the awning of La Bella Vita like fists on a coffin lid, turning the alley behind the restaurant into a river of regret. Alex Harlan wiped grease from his hands on his apron, the scent of garlic and basil clinging to him like an old lover's perfume, and stepped out into the downpour without a word, because what good were words against a storm like this? There, slumped against the overflowing dumpster, was the boy, no older than 16, soaked to the bone. His eyes hollow as the empty takeout containers scattered around him. And in that split second, Alex knew feeding him wasn't charity. It was the crack in his armored heart he'd been waiting for without even realizing it. The boy's name was Jamie. He learned later that night, after shoving a bowl of rigatoni under his nose in the back booth where the staff snuck smokes. "Eat," Alex said, his voice gruff from years of barking orders in 90-decibel kitchens, but his hands trembled just a little as he poured red wine into a chipped mug. Non-alcoholic for the kid, of course, because even saints had lines. Jamie devoured it like a feral thing, sauce smearing his chin, and between bites, his story spilled out in fragments. Parents lost to the opioid wave in some forgotten Rust Belt town, foster homes that chewed him up and spat him out, and now New York, this glittering beast that promised reinvention but delivered only cardboard beds and hunger pangs. Alex listened, the diner's fluorescent buzz the only soundtrack, feeling that familiar ache bloom in his chest, the one that whispered he was too old at 42 to play savior, too scarred from his own closet days to risk another ghost. By dawn, the rain had eased to a drizzle, and Alex found himself bundling Jamie into the passenger seat of his battered Ford pickup, the kind with a dented fender from a bar fight in his wilder 20s. "You're not sleeping in that alley anymore," he muttered, navigating the slick streets toward his walk-up in Brooklyn, where the brownstones leaned like weary confidants. It wasn't pity, not really. It was the echo of his own youth, back when he'd fled a small-town Texas Bible Belt that branded him sinner for stealing glances at the quarterback. Gay in America meant reinvention or ruin, and Alex had chosen the former, culinary school on scholarships, a string of anonymous hookups that never quite filled the void, and now this empire of Italian comfort food that masked his loneliness with marinara stains. Jamie curled against the window, asleep before they crossed the bridge, and for the first time in years, the cab felt less like a cage and more like a confessional. The apartment was a shoebox miracle. Exposed brick walls plastered with faded postcards from Tuscany, a kitchenette that doubled as his mad scientist lab, and a pull-out couch buried under cookbooks. Alex tossed Jamie a towel and a pair of sweats 2 sizes too big, the kind he'd worn through his line cook days. "Shower. Then we talk." The boy emerged scrubbed pink, his dark curls tamed, looking almost like the sons of the Park Slope families who brunch at his place on Sundays. Over black coffee and cornetti he'd baked at 4 a.m., Jamie confessed the rest. No ID, no school records, just a backpack with a dog-eared copy of On the Road and a photo of a woman with Jamie's eyes, his mom, gone too soon. Alex nodded, scrolling contacts on his phone until he landed on Maria, the social worker who'd pulled him through his own foster limbo. "We'll get you squared," he said, and meant it, because in the food world, you didn't let good ingredients rot. Weeks blurred into a rhythm neither had expected. Jamie shadowed Alex at the restaurant, chopping onions with a precision that belied his trembling hands, his laughter bubbling up like Prosecco when Alex cursed a botched bechamel. La Bella Vita buzzed with its usual chaos. Waiters dodging elbows, the sizzle of veal saltimbocca, the low hum of jazz from the speakers. But now there was this anchor, this kid who asked questions about saffron's origins and why Alex never talked about back home. Alex deflected with stories of his nana's recipes, the ones smuggled from Calabria. But at night, alone in his bed with the city groaning below, He'd replay Jamie's grin and wonder if this was what family felt like. Not blood, but basil and borrowed time. It wasn't all steam and simplicity. The system fought back, as it always did for strays like Jamie. Hearings in fluorescent-lit courtrooms where judges with wedding bands eyed the gay chef like he was auditioning for Daddy of the Year. Mr. Harlan. One drawled, southern accent thick as gravy. You understand this boy's situation. Alex bit his tongue, tasting copper, and laid out his case. Steady job, clean record, a fridge stocked with enough leftovers to feed an army. Maria vouched, her reports painting him as the unlikely hero. And slowly, the walls cracked. Temporary guardianship turned provisional, then permanent, with whispers of adoption on the horizon. Jamie, for his part, bloomed. Enrolled in a Brooklyn high school with a culinary magnet program, his essays on Kerouac earning A's. His first crush on a classmate named Tyler sending Alex into overprotective mode with lectures on safe spaces and consent. But beneath the domestic glow, shadows lingered. Alex's dates, sporadic, always with men who smelled of cologne and caution, fizzled faster now, excuses piling up like unwashed pots. Who's the kid? They'd ask, eyeing Jamie's sneakers by the door, and Alex would shrug. Family, the word heavy on his tongue. He hadn't come out to Jamie yet, not fully. The boy had pieced it together from the pride pins on Alex's lanyard and the way his eyes softened at shirtless waiters, but they danced around it, two souls orbiting the unspoken. One evening, as they kneaded dough for focaccia, Jamie's flour-dusted hand brushed Alex's, and the air thickened. Thanks for this, Jamie murmured, eyes downcast. Alex squeezed his shoulder, heart thudding. Wouldn't have it any other way, kid. By spring, Jamie was thriving, top of his class, interning at a Michelin-starred spot uptown, his frame filling out with muscle from hauling flour sacks. Alex watched from the sidelines, pride swelling like yeast, but a quiet fear gnawed. Kids like Jamie didn't stay kids forever. The adoption papers sat unsigned on the counter, a talisman of what-ifs. Then came the letter, innocuous in its cream envelope, a DNA test kit from one of those ancestry sites, a gag gift from Alex's sous chef for his birthday. Figure out if you're really Italian, the card joked. Alex laughed it off, but Jamie, ever the curious one, swiped a cheek swab one night while Alex slept off a double shift. Just science, he said later, when the results pinged on his phone. But his face drained of color, and he bolted to the bathroom, retching as if the marinara had turned. Alex found him there, knees to chest on the tile. What is it? No answer, just Jamie thrusting the phone forward, the screen glowing with a match probability that shattered the world. 99.9%. Father and son. Not metaphor, not mentor blood. Alex's breath hitched, memories crashing like waves. That one reckless night in culinary school, a drunken hookup with a woman he'd barely known, a condom that failed, a pregnancy scare she laughed off with an abortion story. But apparently, not. She'd moved away. He buried it under layers of denial and denial's children. Success, solitude, and now this boy, this miracle he'd fed from scraps, was his own flesh, a secret sown in carelessness and reaped in rain. The revelation hung between them like smoke from a grease fire, choking the easy banter. Jamie pulled away, attending school with shadowed eyes, his internships a escape hatch. Why didn't you know? He demanded one night, voice cracking over leftover lasagna. Alex had no answer, just the raw truth. I was scared. Of everything. America, with its promise of second chances, felt like a lie in that moment. Gay men weren't supposed to father sons this way. not without fanfare or failure. But Jamie listened, tears carving tracks through the steam, and in the quiet after, they rebuilt. Therapy sessions in a rainbow flag-draped office, late-night talks where Alex shared his closet horrors, the beatings from his father's belt, the flight to New York that tasted of freedom and fear. Years folded like crepes. Jamie graduated valedictorian. His speech a paean to found families forged in fire. Alex in the front row, handkerchief clutched like a lifeline. College at NYU, a degree in hospitality. Then his own pop-up truck slinging fusion tacos that drew lines around the block. Alex's restaurant expanded, a second location in Queens, but the heart remained that alley, that first bowl. Their bond deepened, unspoken now but ironclad. Fatherhood claimed, queerness shared in pride parades and quiet brunches. Jamie dated, a string of baristas and artists, all with kind eyes and quicker laughs, while Alex found tentative love with Marco, a sommelier whose Tuscan roots mirrored his own. Life, for once, tasted balanced, like a well-seasoned ragu. Then the invitation arrived. Embossed gold on ivory, Jamie's wedding. To Elena, the graphic designer he'd met at a food festival in Brooklyn, her Venezuelan fire complementing his quiet intensity. Alex stared at it over coffee, a pang he couldn't name twisting his gut. "It's time," Jamie said, clapping his shoulder, oblivious to the undercurrent. Preparations swirled. Tastings for the cake, chocolate hazelnut. Alex's recipe. Fittings for tuxes that made Jamie look like a man from a magazine. Alex threw himself in, masking the unease with toasts and timelines. But nights brought dreams of that rainy alley, the boy he'd saved without knowing he was saving himself. The bachelor party was low-key, a rooftop affair with craft beers and city lights sprawling like spilled stars. Jamie pulled Alex aside, the skyline humming with possibility. "Dad," he said, the word still a gift, wrapped in wonder. "I need to tell you something. About the wedding." Alex's pulse quickened, old fears resurfacing. Was Elena pregnant? A shotgun affair? But Jamie's smile was serene, almost secretive. "It's not what you think. Trust me." Alex nodded, clapping him on the back. But the words lodged like a fishbone, sharp and insistent. As the date approached, fissures appeared. Marco noticed first. Alex's distraction a third wheel in their bed. "You're fading on me," he said one evening, wine glass dangling. Alex confessed fragments, the adoption, the DNA twist, but not the wedding's shadow. Marco, ever the pragmatist, squeezed his hand. "Blood's one thing. Love's the rewrite." Wise words, but they didn't quiet the storm. Jamie, too, grew distant, buried in vows and venues, his calls clipped with "later, Dad." Alex filled the void with work, the kitchen his confessor, but the truth gnawed. What if this union erased their hard-won story? What if Elena, with her warmth and worldliness, claimed the son he'd only just found? Rehearsal dinner at La Bella Vita, the air thick with antipasti and anticipation. Tables groaned under prosciutto and burrata, laughter echoing off the brick. Elena shone, her toast a love letter to Jamie's resilience, but her eyes flicked to Alex with a knowing glint that set his teeth on edge. "To family," she said, raising her glass, and the word landed like a gauntlet. Jamie caught his gaze across the room, a nod pregnant with promise or peril. That night, alone in his apartment, Alex unearthed the old DNA printout, tracing the lines that bound them. Betrayal? No, not from Jamie. But something brewed, a revelation waiting to boil over. The morning of the wedding dawned crisp, October gold gilding Central Park's leaves. Alex knotted his tie in the mirror, the silk a noose of nerves, Marco's kiss a talisman on his cheek. The ceremony was at the boathouse, that jewel of American romance. Arched windows framing the lake, strings of lights like fireflies in daylight. Guests milled, Jamie's college crew, Elena's boisterous familia, Alex's staff in ill-fitting suits. He took his seat, front row, heart a drum solo as the quartet struck up Pachelbel, and Elena appeared, radiant in lace, her veil a whisper of wind. But then Jamie entered, and the world tilted. No tux for him, instead, a tailored suit the color of midnight, his arm linked not in hesitation but in harmony with another man. Wait, no. Elena was there, but beside her, stepping forward with vows in hand, was Tyler. Tyler, from high school, the crush Jamie had blushed over a decade ago, now grown into an architect with laugh lines and unwavering eyes. The guests gasped, a ripple of confusion, then applause as the truth unfurled. It was a double wedding. Elena and her longtime partner, Sophia, a chef from Alex's network, hidden in plain sight, and Jamie with Tyler, their love a quiet constant, nurtured in stolen weekends and shared silences. Alex's breath caught, the betrayal not malice but mercy withheld. Jamie had planned it this way, to shield him from the what-ifs, to reveal their queerness in tandem, a family portrait redrawn. As vows exchanged, "I choose you," in rain and revelation, Tyler said, voice steady. Tears blurred Alex's vision. This was the truth he never expected. Not loss, but legacy. His son, brave in ways he'd only dreamed, weaving their broken threads into a tapestry of acceptance. The reception spilled into laughter and lambrusco, toasts doubling like the couples. Alex found Jamie by the cake, knife poised. "You sneaky bastard," he growled, pulling him into a hug that smelled of vanilla and victory. Jamie laughed, the sound pure as the first rain. "Couldn't let you worry alone, Dad. We're all misfits here." Elena and Sophia joined, arms linked, their story a mirror. Hidden loves in a world still learning to look. Marco slipped beside Alex, whispering, "See? Rewrite." As dusk fell, the park aglow with lanterns, Alex watched Jamie and Tyler dance. Slow, sure, the lake a silver witness. No by kitsch. This, just humanism in its rawest form, America, flawed and fierce, where a chef's impulse could birth a dynasty of daring hearts. The truth wasn't a bomb, but a bridge over alleys and years, to a horizon where love, in all its gay glory, fed the soul long after the plate was cleared.